Let me start tonight by saying good evening to everyone. And I'm joking with Sheldon, but it's funny that he had said that because while we were teaching yesterday and Saturday, I was thinking a lot of thoughts. So tonight is going to be a little bit different in that I'm going to lay out some foundational thoughts, and I hope we'll be able to generate discussion from those and bring enlightenment to them. And so, but before we get started with anything this evening, let me just say thank everyone for being here tonight and ask, are there any questions from anything that was taught on yesterday or Saturday or anything in particular that you would like to ask Pastor and Sheldon?
What?
No questions? Okay, then. Well, tonight we're going to kind of talk about some things that we talked about over the entire weekend. And what I mean by that is I began to have some thoughts on yesterday, and I was thinking, well, it started Saturday, and I think on Saturday, someone made the comment, the first question was asked basically about getting tired of every time it looks like we're moving forward with something, all of a sudden, like, you know, they come and lift the mask law and say everybody don't wear masks, and you're seeing the downside of everything taking place with the virus. And it was basically almost feeling like I'm getting tired because every time we start to move forward, it looks like we're getting pushed back. And that started me to thinking, I did not even realize at that point in time when that was being said and was being discussed, I didn't even realize that I myself had started to feel that way. I was thinking certain thoughts. And as the lesson progressed and I listened to everything, I still was in that state of mind of we're always looking at pushback. So what goes on when we're in that place of pushback? Why does this keep happening? And what came to me, and I'm going to get to the scripture maybe tonight, or if not tonight, maybe even next week, I started thinking about the scripture that came to me was in Galatians when it talks about don't grow weary in well-doing, for in due time you will reap the benefits, or you will receive if you faint not. And so that started me on a whole way of thinking differently about some things. So tonight is going to be more of a conversation and with dialogue because I'm going to lay out some foundational truths that have been presented in the other lessons and kind of show you where we are in relationship to those truths right now today. So the first thing that came to mind with me was the word pushback. I had a revelation, or I came to a conclusion that that's the word that I don't intend to use much anymore, because what I'm beginning to realize is not that it is pushback, because pushback, I know what we mean when we say it, but what it is, pushback can also mean that I'm losing ground. Something is pushing me back, and I'm being pushed into a corner, and I am now losing ground. What I'm beginning to realize, and what I will utilize more than anything now, is when we are moving forward and advancing, because we really are. We have not stopped advancing. What we're getting is resistance. Resistance speaks to not so much something that you're doing to me that's causing me to lose ground, but resistance begins to speak to resisting the desire to understand and to see who you are, because you're comfortable in your privilege and you're comfortable in your lifestyle and you're comfortable where you are. So therefore, what you're really giving me is resistance, but your resistance has more to do with you not being able to see who you are as opposed to making me forget who I am. So when I began to put those pieces together and begin to understand, that's a new vocabulary word for me now. It won't be so much of speaking to as things look like they're getting worse before they're getting better. We hold on to the fact that we know that they're not getting worse, but we recognize that what is happening is we're experiencing not pushback, but we're experiencing resistance, and that resistance is coming from that entity who is not understanding who he is spiritually. Does that make sense, or any questions or comments about that? Okay, let's move forward. So we're going to have the quiet class tonight. Yesterday, a lot of discussion went forward too, and some things were said. And this is me thinking out loud, and these are the things that have been shown to me. We began to talk about, the pastor made a comment yesterday that the foundational principles or the conduct of man has established is not real, and therefore those things will be destroyed. But he kept talking about the foundational principles of God are eternal and cannot be destroyed, because those are the true foundational principles upon which we are to build everything. That is what real life comes from. That's what spiritual life is based upon. That started me to thinking. He also made the comment that the Caucasian never says that he is God. And as I thought about that comment, where is the Caucasian in his thinking? And when I'm saying Caucasian, I'm speaking more of entity and speaking more of the entity in the concepts of that entity, the way things are being perceived and the way things are being processed. So when he never says that he is God, but what did he do? Out of his ability to create, the Caucasian, that entity, that concept of understanding that I think that I am in a place where I am to rule and reign over. He created his own image of what his God is. He put that God in a place called heaven, and he said, you will see that God when you leave this realm. And then he immediately set himself up in a position to be in the role of God according to what he thinks that role looks like. Hence, that role in his mind means to dominate. That role in his mind means to rule over. And so, therefore, he is in a place of living from a false reality that he has created. And as a result of having created that false reality, he now thinks more highly of himself than he should, and he is at a place of wield or imagine that perception of how he sees himself is the reality from which he is now creating. And I'm going slow with this because I don't want to confuse anyone, because I'm going somewhere with this. Does that make sense? Questions or comments? So where's the Caucasian now in his thinking? The Caucasian is now in a place of self-aggrandizement. And what does that mean? Exaggerating his own importance and his own power. And as a result of that, he, from the basis of where he has put his God that he created, he feels that this is what his God would want him to be. This is the role that he is to play. How do we know that? That was very self-evident on January 6th, because from a place of thinking that this is what my God would want me to do, as we storm the Capitol, as lives are lost, we stop in the middle of everything that is, and what do? We lift our hands and we offer thanksgiving and prayers of thanksgiving, because we are now protecting our identity. We are now protecting our humanness. We are now protecting who we are. So that's why I say when we look at Romans 12 and 13, it talks to us about don't think more highly of yourself than you should. That is the state where we find the Caucasian at this moment, not realizing who he is. So he's created his own identity. And where does that identity put him? It puts him in a place of rulership. And in his mind, when we speak of rulership, and I'm going to talk about what rulership really means in a moment, rulership to him means to have dominion. And if I am to have dominion and rule over you, that means I have to put you in a place of servitude, so that you must come to me for everything that you need. You must come to me for your very existence, everything, because I now operate the world system, and I see myself in this earth realm, in this world, as the God of all things. So as we begin to look at that and we see where mankind is and humanity is, and that thinking, and as a result of the Adam being put to sleep, and the separation that he is now creating from that state of unconscious unawareness, we are now living in the truth of what is being created from his mind, and it is a false truth, but it is a reality that we are dealing with consciously every day. So my question becomes, where does that leave us now? And before I move forward, questions or comments? Questions or comments?
This is
Go ahead.
This is Angela. I had a question. Do you what we talked about yesterday, what you talked about now, all of us are Elohim. So you have all of us being Elohim. Then you have some that is operating, as you say, in we're doing their own thing. So how do we bring balance to those who are creating from the tree of life, and then those who are creating from the tree of good and evil? So how do we bring balance to that?
And that is exactly where I'm headed, Angela, because I'm laying the foundation from everything that has been said over the weekend as we begin to think about where are we now. We are at the very we are in the stages of recognizing who we are, and as a result of that, where that puts us now, where does that leave us? Crying out with a genuine desire for all mankind to know who He is. That's where we are going with this lesson, because if we don't bring balance, if we don't bring understanding to humanity as to who it really is, then this will continue. This will this place of false realities appearing real that are being created that becomes the false reality of what we must live with every day, because it is the reality that is being played out right now. That if we don't change this false narrative, it will continue to play out. And so we are the ones who are being awakened to understanding that it is up to us to change it. Where do we start? We start from a place of desire. Desire sets us on that path to enlightenment. Desire for what? We are now at that point in place where we're desiring for all humanity and all mankind to see who He really is, because the Caucasian does not understand who he is. He does not know to look internally to see who God is. He has set up his own God externally, placed him in a place called heaven. And now what really rules him and governs more than anything is the God of this world, money and prestige and separation and class. All of these things are nothing but tools of separation that keeps him from seeing who he is. And if we buy into the lie, those same tools will keep us from seeing who we are. So as we begin to set our path, now that we know what's happening, because I felt like, for me, this whole weekend was about an awakening. It wasn't new news, something that we haven't heard some things before. I think the way it was framed was new for me, and it resonated in a different way. And it opened my mind to the point of now all of these questions and thoughts are being generated about where am I now and where's my role and what is my role to be at this point in time. One of the things that we have always said is when we become aware of who we are, we set our course and we speak. As I go into this discussion, we've said that so many times, but I have a question for you, and it's not rhetorical. When we say set your course and just be what?
Before you go there, may I?
Yes.
When you were talking about the whole concept of the mindset of the Caucasian and the relationship to a creator, we have been taught and conditioned to believe that we are to compartmentalize government, religion, and our everyday life. However, those who are in the seats of power don't do that because they understand clearly that there is no way possible to compartmentalize those three things and at the same time be a benefit to humanity, or be able to be in a position to hold on to your power. What am I saying? I am saying that those three entities, be they government, religion, or everyday life, all of those things are the same. They just wear a different coat. The government is no different than religion, and religion is no different than everyday life. When those men went into the Capitol, is one thing that we learned, and if we didn't, we were blind, or we just don't want to know. We learned that not only were they embraced by the seat of power, because no one was really arrested that day, neither was anyone prevented in a deadly way from entering that building. Number two, they were also embraced by religion, because none of the religious leaders in this nation voiced any opposition to what happened in that place, even though 5 people died. And their entrance was based upon a total lie. The other thing is that these people who went in that building were not governmental people in governmental and seats of governmental power or religious power. They were people who were living their everyday lives, but in support of religion and government. So when we talk about this, the question is, why are we expected to compartmentalize and they are not? The reason we are expected to compartmentalize is because when we began to point out the inequities in the system, we are told politics has no place in the church. When we began to talk about how unrighteous politics is, we are told there's separation of state and government. State and church. When we talk about bringing balance to our everyday life, we are told work harder. So all of these things are fed to us to compartmentalize to keep us off balance. However, when we look at what is really taking place, what we actually see is that the same powers that established the foundation for the system that has continuously kept people in bondage through religious businesses called churches and governmental power to undergird what the religions are teaching. When we look at it from that perspective, what do we see? We see that whether it be the African church, the evangelical church, all of it is Catholicism. Because all of the teachings are the same. That you may not wear a robe and call him a priest. You may not have a pope that you recognize as over you. But if you came out of the root of Catholicism, if you are a fruit from that tree, you are still a Catholic. Catholic is not a denomination. Catholic means universal. So it is saying that this is the universal religion. In other words, this is the religion that governs the universe. And in doing so, in governing this universe, it also dictates how the government treats the people, and it protects that government by telling people they're going to hell if they don't live by the laws of that government, knowing that those laws are unjust. So how is it then that we can expect to find redress in a governmental system that is established for the express purpose of suppressing us, How can we hope to find redress from a God that has been created by that system that has no place in the scriptures whatsoever? A whole religious system that is totally antithetical to what the scripture says. A system that teaches us that it is impossible for any of us to be who Jesus is or do what Jesus did, which in effect is saying Jesus lied. Because Jesus told us not only will we do what he has done, but greater things than these we shall do. So what I'm saying to you is what I'm hearing as you talk is we must rethink, reteach everything that we have been shown in our past, because these are the shackles that are more deadly and difficult to remove than the shackles that were made from iron. So bottom line is this: whether it be reverend at Great New Faith or bishop at AME or priest at the diocese, it doesn't matter. All are the same. The labels that we have put on them do not change anything. I've said this before and I said again. You can put a cat in an oven and it have kittens. You don't call them biscuits simply because they were born in an oven. Just because you change the name from Catholic to Baptist or Presbyterian or Protestant, it does not change what you have been taught and the antics that you engage in order to make sure that everything remains the same and all of the people remain the subjects of those who operate these systems. It is incumbent upon us to speak to these inequities, but at the same time to show how these inequities can be overridden and humanity can come to that place of balance and freedom that it was intended to enjoy. And as we move forward, I'm sure the opportunity is going to be presented for us to be able to understand how we, in essence, change the heart of the system, not the man. The individual heart can change, but that doesn't change the system. The heart of the system must change. And I do believe that we have been shown how to accomplish that now. Any questions or comments about that? If not, okay, I'm done.
I wanted to ask, when you said that about the shackles, let me see, can I get it right? Is that another form of temptation? Because the Caucasian is like have a carrot and they dangle it in front of you. You're never going to get that carrot, but you strive to be like the Caucasian. So is that just like yield not to temptation, that we're not supposed to be tempted?
Yeah, okay. First of all, let me say this. When we're talking about that Caucasian, we're not talking about people. We're talking about concepts. And I'm not saying this for your purposes. I'm saying it for those who may have not been on the line, okay? We're talking about concepts because there are people, let me put it this way, the principles that are perpetuated we have been conditioned by those principles, and that is the reason that racism killed Freddie Gray in Baltimore in the back of that police van. But there were black policemen in that van. It's the principle, not the color of the skin, not the quote-unquote false narrative about the race of the person. It's the system that has been created by these principles of racism. So when you raise that question about the principles of the Caucasian and in relationship to the shackles, the shackles are anything that keep you in servitude, whether you are aware of the shackles or not. And the carrot is not the thing that keeps you in servitude or keeps you in the shackles. It is your greed or your ignorance that keeps you in shackles because it keeps you running after the carrot. You run after the carrot because you're greedy, or you run after the carrot because you're ignorant of what's happening to you. There should not be anyone who is ignorant as to what's happening in our lives, because we have seen and been shown too many times that there are a handful. I think the boys call them the talented tenth that get through, and the rest of us don't. So that carrot is that corporate position that a handful of people get, and, who look like us get, and we think we can make it because they made it, not understanding that this is not what it's about. We have been told by especially charismatic religion and our folk in our congregations and pulpits that God wants you to be rich. That is the truth, but not with the riches of this earth. If our goal is to be wealthy financially, we have lost sight of who we are. When we understand that the objective of wealth is to play everything righteous forward and believe what's in the scriptures. If anyone tells you it's different, then ask them to explain to you what this means. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all of these other things will be added unto you. Where did that come from? It came as a result of Jesus saying that birds do not gather, but they are fed. They don't have barns to store, but they are fed. And if your Father feeds the birds, what more is he going to do for you? So this journey is not about the acquisition of the God called money. It's about a recognition and an awareness of how we were fearfully and wonderfully made and the image that we were created in, and understanding and becoming aware that we are not just that image in terms of being an inanimate object. We are the life of that energy. We are the essence of that image. We are the creative portion of that. So has the ability to do everything that image was able to accomplish. Does that help you?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other question or comment? Thank you, Pastor.
You're welcome.
Okay. Now, where are we going with this now? If you start thinking about everything that's been said so far, it comes back to us. We know that the fate of humanity is really in our hands. And what I mean by that, those who are seekers of truth, we must recognize the purpose and the meaning behind what does that mean, being the seeker of truth and setting the course to bring about the understanding of truth in this realm so that everyone will have that opportunity and be given that opportunity to see for himself who he really is. So as we begin to look at this, I asked a question a moment ago. We've said before that we've often talked about, and we said it, I've said it, Nick said it was the first that I heard to say it, and it resonated, and of course I made that a part of who I am too. And he said, set your course and just be. As we look at everything that's going on around us today, and we set our course to just be, the question arose in me, be what? And before I go into what the understanding is, and then we're going to move to just a moment to one of the sayings of Thomas to bring this on home, to make it clearer. What are we saying when we say, and I'm not going to answer this right now, and this is not rhetorical, what do we mean when we say, set the course and just be what? What are we talking about?
Okay.
Because,
It's Ron. I think there's a lot in that question, and I think a lot of the answer from where your lesson started is loaded in that question. We all are aware of some things, and what we are aware of is, for the most part, the history of man and man's relationship with God and where we stand now. We've even talked about where we started years ago individually in religious settings and moved forward to this point. And each and every one of us, I think even pastors said something Saturday, and we even talked about it yesterday. What is it that you are willing to give up to be righteous and see the world love and humanity? I mean, love and compassion take over the world, be a part of the world as we live. And we look at this, and we have collectively and individually set our mind to be righteous people and to seek understanding of who we are. And it's led us to this sport. And I think that each and every one of us can be a witness that we have seen proof that Elohim, our Creator, is with us as we stand. That experience is our proof. That experience is our answer. The world waits. The world was created, and the world waits for someone to seek righteousness and to recognize that He is Elohim, and to want to understanding and desire to be righteous, and to actually understand love and want to desire to be loved for all of mankind. And we get that. And we, even this weekend in some of our lessons, the answers that, and revelations that we get when we study, we are witnessing what is taking place in the universe as far as enlightenment and moving and asking for the things that we've asked for, or answering the things we've asked for, We even talked about the positive things that happened the last year, although, 500,000 people died, and which is extremely unfortunate. A lot of positive spiritual things took place. All of these experiences are our answers. And we do grow to a point where we seem to look at other things and the actions of a few, or actions of many for that matter, and they seems as though on some regards things haven't changed, but our experiences answers and tells us differently. So the actions in a physical place may not have manifested to what we want to see, but in the spiritual world, we are examples that things are moving, that the energy is lining up, that the energy is moving in the right direction. As we become prayer and learn how to meditate, as we recognize that we are the Word, as we recognize that we are one with Elohim in the universe and what that means. So I answer your question by saying we be what we were designed to be, and that is recognizing that we are God. We are gods. We are the ones who are making a difference. And it has been done through civil rights and governments and laws, and we are not only looking at what is right for treating mankind, but what is right for the entire universe, what is right for mankind, period. And I don't know if that's ever been done. So just to answer your question, letting it be, we're being who we were designed to be. And the course has been set, and we reinforce that every time we meet and every time we talk. We reinforce the course that is being set. And we go on our daily lives and letting it be, and we absorb what is happening, and it is up to us to do something about it. We see it, but keep the focus on what you're setting on being. We can't lose focus of that. That's my answer to your question.
And it's so spot on. Anyone else before I even chime in on what you just said, Ron, because you walked me right to where I want to go, and that is the answer. But is there anything else anyone else would like to add? Ron said a mouthful there. He led me right up to where I was going, because the word be, when Nick said that word, or when that word was given to him, that was no accident. Be is a verb. It's an action verb. And the thing that be speaks to, it's very funny to me. I looked at, and I hadn't even thought of it this way, when we teach that word be in a school setting, and we conjugate that word, if I'm talking about be, if I'm saying being in its future tense, I will be. If I'm saying something to be in the past tense, I was. But if I'm speaking about being in the present tense, guess what it is? Being speaks to I am. So when I began to realize, setting my course, like Ron just said, being aware in the presence of the now, here and now, right now, being aware of everything that's going on, not being indifferent to the pain and the suffering and the indignations and the wrong thinking and the wrong ideologies of concepts of men right now, not being moved by any of that, but setting the course and understanding that if B speaks to a state of existence, and it does, everything that Ron just described speaks to a state of existence, then the state of existence that I am learning to be less of is being human. Because we have spent so much time trying to be human that I've forgotten or did not understand what it means to be who I was destined to be, who I was created to be, which is Elohim, being I am. And so what Ron was giving examples of, the things that we're learning, we are setting the course to be enlightenment, be Elohim, be I am in every situation that we find ourselves in. Not so moved by our physical bodies, and not so moved by being human and just being moved by my emotions and getting angry about everything. Or as I found myself earlier in the week when Rainier was speaking on Saturday about, you get a little tired of pushback. I realized that I was in a place that I hadn't even recognized I was. I was getting the teaching. I was understanding. I embraced everything that is taught. I believe everything that was taught. But still, somewhere it entered into my thinking that I'm getting tired of not seeing immediate results. I'm ready to see some things changing. Things have been changing ever since we started on this journey and decided and determined that we are going to be the man in the earth. We are going to be the entity in the earth that seeks righteousness and truth and genuinely desires to see that come into existence in this realm, so that all men can see who they are, and all men can know that they too are Elohim. Ever since we started, we've been seeing this, but sometimes so much happens in a day that we get bogged down in our thinking, and we begin to think, wow, this is a lot. Things don't seem to be changing at all. But when we say that I'm going to set my course, I'm going to allow this journey to lead me into being who I am, and being who I am truly is being enlightened in every situation that I found myself in. Like I said last week on last Monday, when I came to the realization that I am the influencer of all life because I am all life, that I have to set my course to be the deliverer of all mankind, of all humanity, by showing them who they are. Does that make sense? Questions or comments?
I have one, Kathy. When you were
Okay.
saying you have to be, say that again?
Okay.
Oh, it's when you said whatever situation that you be in, you have to be light. Explain what you mean by that.
You don't, and I'm going to go to Galatians 6 probably next week. I don't think I'm going to get there tonight. But Galatians 6 talks about when you find someone who is in a situation where he doesn't know who he is, you restore him gently. You bring him back in, but you be careful as you yourself find yourself being like them. What is that saying? You have to be in a position of recognizing if you give me hate, and I know you're giving me hate, and I am the restorer to you to bring enlightenment to you, I can't give hate back to you just because you hate me. I can't treat you the way you're treating me. If I am loving kindness, I have to be loving kindness in that situation, no matter how much hatred you show at me, no matter how you come against me, no matter how you work to bring me down. I remain constant in being loving kindness. I bring that enlightenment because when they look in that reflection of the mirror that I am, they should not see their own hatred and the same disdain staring back at them. If they give me hate, what should be reflected in the mirror when they look at me and that should show back to them should be loving kindness. That's how I bring enlightenment into any situation. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Being the loving kindness that desires to see the deliverance of all mankind. And by deliverance, I use that word to say delivering him from the false reality that he is creating now so that he will have an understanding of the awareness of what it means to be Elohim. Question or comment?
I have a question, Kathy. This is
Okay.
Evelyn. And I don't know if Pastor touched on this yesterday. So did not our ancestors not have the desire that we have and set their intentions just to be? And if so, why things didn't work on their behalf? Does that make sense what I'm saying?
It does.
It does. Oh, you going to answer that, Pastor?
You go ahead. I just
No,
said
I'll let you. It makes sense to me, but I'll let you answer. Go ahead.
Okay. They did. As a matter of fact, they sustained us to get to this place in terms of our ancestors. As to the methodology in terms of bringing the journey to a head for the benefit of humanity, it's a bit different because if you look at our ancestral history, what you will see is that we sought to be free from bondage, from enslavement, from the brutality of it all, from being under the fist of racism, from being the most despised group of people on the face of the earth, even despised by people who look just like us. So our fight, our quest by our ancestors was to free us. And that was because our ancestors was physically experiencing the bondage and physically observing the brutality and had a deep spiritual desire to forgive, but at the same time to escape it all. Not seeing what we have been shown. Standing on their backs or standing on the shoulders of these giants. Here we are. We're able to see further into the valley of deliverance now because their shoulders have become a mountain to us. What do we see? We see beyond the brutality and the suffering and the pain. We see more than the hatred. We see more than being despised. What we see is a group of people who perpetuate the hatred as being in pain themselves. We are beginning to observe the depth of pain that they are in. And that is the reason the pain is inflicted on others. The greed is there because greed is an outcry of lack. When you have everything, you're still greedy. You still feel like you're lacking something, and the something that they're lacking, our ancestors did not see that. The something that the oppressor is lacking is knowing who it is. Our ancestors were able to see a glimpse of who we are, but not who the oppressor is, because the oppressor taught the ancestor, our ancestors, that anybody who was evil and brutal and savagery and barbaric are demons. They are the agents of Satan. So our ancestors saw them as being Satan. And this Satan that they had been taught about was an entity that challenged God victoriously. And I say victoriously because the attributes that have been attributed to Satan are the attributes that kept us in slavery. And that could not be further from the truth. But standing on the shoulders of our ancestors, we see how to navigate this thing now. What do we see? In seeing the pain of the oppressor, we understand it's not enough to forgive. We have to go beyond forgiving and create an environment of love. And the creating of the environment of love doesn't come by appealing to the government for change or for some legislative relief. Neither does it come by falling on our face in a church gathering at the altar or even in the midnight hour on your bedside. It comes when we truly embrace who we are. The essence, the image of Elohim, the power that we are endowed with by virtue of being Elohim. When we embrace that, it is at that point that the eye becomes clearer. And we no longer seek to create an environment of legislative change. We create an environment of change based upon the foundational principle of loving kindness. So we don't look at the face of Mitch McConnell and see the turtleneck there. We look at his heart and see that it is the same as ours. He is not aware of that because the principles that he has embraced are fortified by our fight to be like them in terms of richer financially and living in better places like they live in, whatever better is, and having the success that they have defined, as opposed to understanding that success is knowing who you are. And when that happens, how do we change? We change the attitude by creating an environment of loving kindness, by saying and understanding and believing with all of our heart that there is no difference in Mitch McConnell's soul and mind. And by doing that and putting that in the macro and creating with the same words that our Creator created with, then what we are doing is awakening the sense of Adam in the soul of a Mitch McConnell. And I use him, of course, as an example because of what he represents, not because of the man. And in shaking and awakening this attitude to the place where it sees this is not who you really are. Now what happens is Either he wakes up and begins to move in a different direction, a direction of peace and harmony, or he exits the body and sees instantly who he is and begins to influence this side because of the energy that's familiar with him. His familiar energy is able to influence the change of others. We have attributed that to us. Our ancestors did it, and so have we done that. But we have not looked at it beyond the boundaries that have been set for us. And those boundaries are stay in your place. And we stayed in our place trying with our every effort to make our place look like their place, as opposed to creating them in the image and likeness that we know that we are created in. And when I say creating them, it's not making something from nothing. It is opening an eye to see what it looks like. Earlier when Kathy said something about the mirror, they shouldn't look in the mirror and see the hatred that they are. They should look in the mirror and see the love that they are. And they can't see the love that they are if we are not it. If they are looking at it and all they see is a bill that has to come before Congress, they still don't see themselves. They see principles that men have put together. They see the developmental principles of this world, this earth, this realm. And the developmental principles of this realm are the problem. They are not real. They appear to be real. Because if they were real, then it would be impossible to bring peace and harmony out of the chaos that they are perpetuating. When we understand that the only thing that's real is peace, then chaos ceases. Think about it. When you understand that peace is real, regardless of what's going on around you, you are at peace internally. However, if you cannot wrap your mind around that peace, then you are just as chaotic as everything around you. So when we see that within ourselves and we began to expand the understanding of that, and now we are offering it to the whole of humanity, because all we are doing is say, let there be peace, just like let there be light. For we create with words. And when we see manifestations, we don't say anymore that I'm tired, I'm not seeing it fast enough. When we see them, we say, and it is beneficial. Not that it's good, it's beneficial for humanity. And we have seen plenty to be able to say it's beneficial for humanity. The pandemic is beneficial for humanity. Yes, 500,000 plus people in this nation and millions worldwide have been lost. Yes, not lost, transition out of their bodies through pain and suffering here. However, it has brought about an awakening that the earth has never seen before. So it has put us in a place where we are able to take the substance of creation and alter not just the environment that we are in, but alter the course, the journey of all of humanity. And those who have been treated as the least of his have been given the opportunity to become the leader, the burden bearer, the eyes for those who are traveling in the wilderness of despair and hatred. So it is with our words, constantly understanding and reiterating that Mitch McConnell is just as much Elohim as we are. And the whole idea of their principles of fighting against each other. When we look at a Trump and a McConnell, they are fighting, they are imploding. Those principles are tearing each other apart, making space for something new, something that is more palatable when it comes to harmony to be created or to be brought into being. So when it says just be, that's action. And the action is not physical as much as it is the action of spiritual desire from a pure heart, seeking righteousness for everyone, because all men has a soul that is righteous. Questions, comments?
I have some comments on a few things that you said. I'm going to start with the question earlier in regards to Caucasian, and that being an idea, just for those, once again, who were not on yesterday, just to add a little bit more context and then go from there. So when we talk about Caucasian, and as Pastor Richard said, we're talking about a mindset and we're not talking about a particular person or an individual. We're talking about, and by the way, I'm going to tie in, end up with a lot of stuff that you just talked about. We're talking about an individual or a person, however you want to say it, who only identifies themselves as a physical human being. They have lost or not aware of their spirituality. As a result, their interest, because they only see themselves as identifying as a human being person, is to maximize their living conditions. And they, whether that be wealth, whether that be longevity in terms of how long they live, etc. Because they view themselves as being separate, it allows them to be able to exploit others because it is for the purpose of self-preservation as they see and know themselves. Where the hate and racism comes in at is that it's still in their best interest, only from that mindset that I just spoke of, that limited, wrong, false mindset. But it is from that mindset that is in their, I don't want to say in their best interest, but from that, hatred and racism comes. They think of themselves as being the top or the most important, and therefore they believe that in a world of many things that look different, what it is that they perceive as being just like them and looking like them are more so friendly or the best. And because you have anything else that might go against that, that thing can easily be hated on and easily manipulated, easily exploited. But mind you, as I say all of these things, it is because of a mindset and a lack of awareness that this thing naturally happens when that person or that group is blind, so to speak. What has happened a lot with, and I'm not to talk about religion, I just mean in society, government, religion, everything, especially in the West, is that we have been taught, many have been taught, that same exact mindset and to look at life in the same way. And looking at life in the same way, and that being the focus, it has gotten us and many off track, and to start buying into these same ideas and kind of chasing the same things, seeing life only as this time on earth, and therefore essentially playing the same exact game, which of course is a lie. Pastor, as we talked about Africa, doing a lot of studying, it was a guy, a Black United States citizen who had traveled all over Africa. He just transitioned last year, but had worked with and met and learned a lot of different secret African martial arts. It's not really talked about, but it's kind of kept underground on perfect. Excuse me, it's kept underground. How's this word slipping from me? On purpose. There we go. however, answering the same question, he was saying that across the continent of Africa, how the European was able to defeat them, kind of lines with what Pastor Richard said, is because the European lied to them, and they were actually never familiar with being lied to before, and this was a foreign concept. Um, then to go further, as Patrick Richard mentioned, the meek, it immediately made me think of Jesus saying that the meek shall inherit the earth. And looking at that recently within the past few days, that meek in the way that we think of it is totally different than what Jesus was actually saying. Meek then and meek now means two totally different things. When Jesus said meek, Jesus was talking about the idea of having of heart, love, and peace, and the idea that even in the midst of war and chaos, for the one that had gotten to that point, that person would have the kingdom of heaven, would have on earth through peace and love. I think that's but the way we look at meek is just being weak is actually false and wrong. We and I'm not just talking about us on the phone. I mean as a society, we attribute the word meek to mean someone that is just weak and is just someone who is supposed to be slapped down and taken advantage of as well. And the same thing kind of holds true for turning the other cheek. It is not saying hit me, so to speak. It is trying to find love and peace in the situation, but by no means is this saying, just go and get beat up or something like that. That's absolutely not what it's actually saying. I'm done.
Thank you, Sheldon, both Pastor and Sheldon. Any other questions or comments on where we are right now? Are you understanding the concepts that are being laid out? And Angela asked the question, so what do we do now? Where are we now? How do we begin to change this? And I think we've been saying it, Pastor's been saying it, and I think everyone has been saying it is from a place of desire. And I listened, and what started me on this mindset and this train of thought was when Ron shared a story with us about a conversation that he was having with himself. And I think on two separate occasions, Ron, you shared looking within yourself and seeing some things and recognizing that what you're having is an internal conversation and you're seeing what you thought was outside of you is something that's also in you. And so as I began to really think about that and thinking about everything that we said, did I summarize it right, Ron? Did I say it right?
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
So as we start to look at this journey of where we are now, because I'm gonna take us all the way to a different place, which I think I'm gonna do that next week. But I want to go to this place tonight. I want us to understand. Well, let me just put it this way. And thinking about everything that's been going on, I ask myself, why do we sometimes struggle with the understanding of who we are and what we have the ability to do? And I know that I've looked at religion. Religion has taught me that I've got to be a certain way, and I've got to be perfect, for the Lord is perfect, and I am not to mess up. And when I feel like I've blown it, or when I feel like I've messed up, and when I feel like I'm troubled about what I'm seeing in me sometimes, it may leave me in a state of thinking that I don't really have the ability to change any of these things that we are seeing being played out at this time in our lives. And I know that's not true. And so as I listened to Ron talk about being troubled, it took me to the second saying of Thomas. And as I began to look at the second saying of Thomas, I realized that even in these vessels that are imperfect, what is perfect in me, the desire to be loving kindness is perfect. The desire to see humanity be Elohim and to be who he was destined to be. That desire in me is perfect. My actions may not always be perfect. My attitude may not always be perfect. My words may not always be perfect, but my desire is always perfect. And it starts with that internal looking inside of myself to start this journey of self-actualization and bringing someone else into the understanding of who they are as Elohim. It starts with an internal journey. Then did you have a question before I move forward?
Just say who Thomas is.
Say what?
I just for the benefit of those who don't know who you talk about when you say the sayings of Thomas, would you briefly state what you're talking about, please?
I think Sheldon kind of went over that yesterday. Sheldon, will you go into the Book of Thomas? Because I got all these ideas from you guys, so you can explain it better than I. So can you tell the Book of Thomas?
Sure. So Thomas is one of the books that were left out of the original New Testament scriptures on purpose. It was found a few decades ago, along with the other original scriptures in a cave. And we know from carbon dating that they are real because they were from shortly after the time of Jesus. They can be dated back that far. And so because the books that we have in the traditional Bible were canonized or basically put together and interpreted, etc., by the Roman priests, we can see how they were manipulated and things left out. Thomas was one of the disciples, just along with like Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John in them, those guys, and actually as well as Mary as well. And this is the Book of Thomas is simply another account of the teachings that Jesus gave from Thomas's perspective. The reason why at this part the Book of Thomas was left out is because the Book of Thomas is more so empowering and is more so telling us who and what we are, and it challenges us, and it doesn't really work at all very good for someone or a group who is trying to use the scriptures as a sense of control. And therefore, of course, the reason why it was left out on purpose. I'm done. Unless there are any questions about Thomas.
Thank you. Any questions about that? Okay, thank you, Sheldon. Any questions about anything that was said? Okay.
Before you continue, go ahead, Charles.
I got a question. When you were saying that to be, and the thing I had got out of it, it was like when Jesus said, "I am," and so when you at the fork of the road, and this is a journey. You see, you no more at the fork of the road no more when you become I am. So that takes you in the right direction, but you have to be that I am if you're going to journey that way. Is I'm right?
Yes.
Or is I'm just thinking of something else?
No, you're right. The thing is, though, with the I am, it's not even that we have to turn into I am or turn into anything. It is that we are aware and know that we are, and know that I am. And then within that knowing that I am, it is that thing that you are resting or just being in. So when it was mentioned earlier in terms of being love and peace, when it was mentioned in terms of being a mirror, etc., it is because you know that you are connected to everyone. It is because you see and recognize the God in them. It is because that you are aware that they need you, and that essentially they're just walking around and looking at the situation or living life blindly, that you are automatically able to be what it is that they need and is nourishing to them. So in a way, which is quite funny if I may add, the very thing that they are falsely trying to grasp or they are after in terms of being fulfilled, that is what you actually are offering them for free. What they need and don't even realize they need. But at the same time, it's not something that you necessarily have to even be conscious or know that you're actually doing it. It is what we're talking about is just, I don't want to say walking in faith, but in confidence of just being stead still in what it is that I just mentioned and knowing who and what we are, that all other things or those other things that I just mentioned rather automatically follow. We are in action and experience and in motion, love and energy. Does that
Does
help,
that make
Charles?
sense, Charles? Does that answer your question?
Yes, that answers it, because when you trying to go one way, then something pull you this way, and you want to be I am in the situation. So when you at the fork of the road, and then when I am the one take you on the right plane, that's what I was talking about. That's when you be on the right road. Well, not the right road, but the right way of going, the right
The
path.
right pathway, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Charles, you kind of are leading me to where I'm going, because we use those terms, I am, and we say I'm Elohim. And as I stated earlier, a lot of times we're saying these things and we don't feel it, because we don't always have the right thoughts. We don't always say the right things. We don't always do the right things. All of these things come into play, but it goes beyond knowing what I think and feel. You've got to get to a point of knowing that you are that, whether you feel that you are Elohim or not. And that's what Thomas kind of sets me up to kind of say to us tonight, because I want to leave us on this trajectory tonight of thinking from this line. Because before I think about all of humanity, and I still think of all of humanity. I think this is happening simultaneously. As I'm thinking about humanity, I'm also coming to terms with what it means to be I am, and what it means to be Elohim, and recognizing that humanity doesn't know this. A lot of humanity may not understand this, but as I am understanding this, what am I producing? What am I bringing into this realm? What am I doing to get them to that point? I think that was the question that was asked earlier, right? And so as you look at the second saying, verse 2 of Thomas, and I just want to talk this out tonight. And like I said, this is a conversation. This is dialogue that I'm wanting us to have, because these are the things that have been resonating with me. Let's take it back to the beginning and start where we really understand what we're saying, really understand what we're seeking and what we're doing. So it starts when it says, Jesus said, let him who seeks continue seeking until he finds. When he finds, he will become troubled. When he becomes troubled, he will be astonished. and will rule over the all. I want to stop right there for a moment. I listened to Ron, and I've listened to myself, and I look at where I am, and I hope we all are having these internal conversations. When I am seeking to be enlightenment, when I am seeking the truth, when I am on this journey of enlightenment, I begin to not look at external things. I begin to look inside of myself, and I am being troubled by some of the things that I see that I don't like in me sometimes. And what am I saying for that? What does that mean when I see these things that trouble me? Of course, I'm troubled for humanity. I'm always troubled for humanity when I see the state of where humanity is right now. But now I'm looking at an internal journey, going inside myself. This is where it starts. And as I begin to go inside myself, I become troubled because there are things in me that I recognize that I don't always like how I think about that. I don't always like how I feel about that. I don't always like how I'm behaving in that instance. Those things begin to trouble me to the point of what? To the point where I begin to continue to seek the deeper understanding of what it means to be who I am. As I begin to be troubled, that troubling causes me to come face to face with myself and who I am, and not just my humanness, because we're moving away from being just human. I'm coming to the realization of being I am. I am in the present tense and all that is real. And if I am being, and being is that action that I'm taking, then I am in the here and now, coming face to face with the reality of who I am. And as I am troubled by some of the things that I don't necessarily like, what do? I now recognize that I have the ability to transform those things on the inside of me. I'm not broken beyond repair. I'm not a broken vessel. I am a spiritual entity coming to the realization of being spirit and coming face to face with my humanness and letting go of those things that are holding me back from being my spiritual self. I'm letting go of those things that trouble me. And by letting go means I'm transforming those things and not letting those things bog me down. When I become troubled, I become astonished. And when I become astonished, I will rule over all. I want to talk about rulership right now. Ruling does not mean dominate in the sense of what natural man has set to do in his state of unawareness of being spirit. Natural man saw dominate, and they thought that meant to break the spirit of another and to bring them into submission to you and rule over them and dominate them. And so therefore, as I am seeing myself only as a human, I think dominance means to bring you into total submission to who I am, and I rule over you. But when I recognize that when I become troubled and I begin to let go of those things that are holding me in this place of being human, and I begin to let go of those things, and I awaken to what true rulership is. Ruling speaks to having the ability and the power to influence the nature of another, resulted in bringing order and bringing balance to humanity. That's what rulership is. But from that entity of Caucasian and not understanding spiritual things, when I hear the word rule, I try to dominate, not understanding that everything that we are looking at internally is a spiritual journey inside of myself. The troubling is a good thing, because without the troubling, I don't recognize my spirituality and begin to let go of certain things. So I really wanted us to understand we are in a place of rulership, not as the world would rule, not from a standpoint of crushing your will and breaking you and breaking your spirit and bringing you into submission to me, but being the influences of all life to bring about balance. And how do I bring about balance? By taking you, getting you to a point where you yourself want to go into a journey of discovery of spirituality, and that journey doesn't take you to look for these things outside of yourself. It's nothing that you're looking for that is in this world in the sense of external, but everything that I am describing right now takes you to a journey on the inside of you, an internal journey where you begin to recognize who you are. Before I say the next part, questions, comments, or anything anyone wants to add? Is that making sense?
Yes.
That does make sense. Yeah.
Yep.
Then it says you must seek in order to discover spirit and truth, and must continue seeking until you realize the spirit indwelling in you and know the truth in your own experience. That's what Ron was saying earlier. Anytime you doubt that we're not doing it the right way, or anytime you doubt that you don't have the ability to do any of this, look at your history with the Creator. Look at your experiences. Nothing in your life has ever been haphazard. Everything that we have lived through, everything that we have endured, everything that we have taught has brought us to this place where we are today on this journey. And through those experiences, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that I and the Creator are one. I'm not doing this on my own out there by myself. I recognize through my experiences that I am on this internal journey that's going to be the journey that will help humanity see who He is. Does that make sense? You must continue seeking and until you realize spirit indwelling in you and know truth in your own experience. It's not enough that another person has discovered the truth. Each individual must seek and strive to discover it, and so engage in the divine labor of salvation of one's soul, so that to say the awakening and liberation of one's soul and conscious union with God. What is that saying? As I seek internally inside of myself, and I begin to recognize that I am who I am Elohim. As a result of that, it goes beyond what I think, it goes beyond what I see, it goes beyond what I feel, it goes beyond anything that I can process through my five senses. It takes me to a place of knowing in my soul, in the innermost being of who I am, the very nature of who I am, that I am on the journey of truth and enlightenment. And because I am really and truly on this journey of truth and enlightenment, I have the ability to help someone else in this journey. How do I help someone else? By being the very principles of the kingdom of God, the principles that are eternal, that are not going to pass away. Pastor spoke of being peace. I am peace. Pastor spoke of being love. I am love. Pastor spoke of being kindness. I am kindness. Pastor spoke and of being meek. I am meekness. I am all of those kingdom principles that will not pass away. They are in me. And as a result of that, when I am met with opposition and resistance, who doesn't know who he is, that part of humanity, who thinks he's just human, I show him in the mirror who he is, who he has the potential to be, because he and I are one. So I see him, but what he sees when he looks in my mirror is the ability of what he has the potential to become. And it all starts with desire and a seeking and a knowing. When I am in that place where it is resonating and I know it to be true, don't let anything take that away from us. That's what this whole journey is about. I can't change anything. That's why it says in Galatians, when I am restoring my brother, when I'm restoring the one who doesn't know who he is, be careful that you don't get into thinking like he's thinking and lose sight of who you are. Does that make sense? Questions or comments? And I'm just opening up the dialogue, and I hope that if anyone sees it any deeper, any further, add to it, please, because I think this is the cusp of understanding what we really mean when we say, how do I change it? It starts with an internal speaking that grows from the inside of who I am, and then it expands the influence of what I have and knowing what it means to really rule, knowing what it means to really influence those around me through my desire. That's what changes everything, and we cannot lose sight of that. Questions or comments? Somebody help me out. Come on.
When you talk about not being changed by others as you seek to change them, or not being influenced to stay where you are when you are moving on this journey and you're interacting with others who are not. I think that also kind of sort of speaks to a portion of Angela's initial question about the idea of how do we reconcile it when there is someone who does not recognize who they are, yet they are still experiencing or expressing loving kindness. It doesn't matter if they don't know who they are, as long as they are in line with the scriptures, because that means they're living out of their soul and not out of their mind. In relationship to the question of influence, if you believe what you say you believe, then you will not allow anyone to move you in a different direction. What am I saying? If something really resonates with you, you do not allow someone to move you in a different direction. However, if you tell them that you agree with them and you know that they are not moving in the right direction, then it doesn't mean that you have moved. It means that you lied. And you've not lied to the Creator. You've lied to yourself, and you've also damaged your journey. Because what you have done, you have made someone believe that they are traveling in the right direction, or that they are providing the right answers / attitude, when in essence they are not. So the question becomes, are you worse off now lying to yourself and convincing someone else that they're right, knowing that they're wrong? Or are you worse off now than you were before you knew the truth? If that takes place in your life, then what you have done is actually impeded your journey, so you are at a standstill in your life. And you have invited circumstances into your life that's going to move you off of the point where you are, meaning the place where you're stuck. You're either going to continuously or continue to deny that truth and become stuck in that place, or sink deeper into the quicksand of that place, or you are going to find it more difficult to extricate yourself from that place by telling the truth. What am I saying? It is easier for you to offer the truth in the beginning rather than pretending to be influenced by something that's not true than it is for you to correct it later or make an attempt to do it later. Because at that point, the person or those with whom you're speaking don't know what to believe about you, or do you really know what to believe about yourself? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes.
So we have to be very cautious when we are dealing with, when we're interacting with other people, we are in a contentious time, and it is almost a place where there are no gray areas. We are at a place where either you move forward or you don't. This is what I'm saying. If you believe that you are who you are in terms of who you were created to be, if you know that the truth not only resonates with you, but you are that truth, and that's the reason it resonates. If you hold on to that, even when you are exhausted from holding on to it, and you refuse to complain about what you are experiencing, you only see that the experience is not what you desire, and it is discomforting, yet you don't complain about it. You recognize it as a message that you might not understand yet. If you hold on to that, that's when manifestation becomes clearer. When we look at what transpired on January 6th in the Capitol, when we look at Derek, Chavin's trial in Missouri, when we look at that, when we look at all of the things that causes us or give us pause and present themselves as an opportunity or excuse, however you want to term it, to grow weary in well-doing. If we do that and embrace it as that, we only prolong the manifestation. So how do we get beyond that? We get beyond that by talking to ourselves, by saying to ourselves, I'm tired, yes, but that exhaustion is not my soul. That exhaustion is my mind. My mind is tired of processing what it is seeing. My soul is saying to me, these things continue because the attributes of loving kindness has not permeated the universe yet or permeated this earth realm yet. And we are looking at the perpetuators of this as individuals and not conceptually. And when we embrace it conceptually, it changes what our mind sees, and we begin to see with our eye what our soul is experiencing. And when our soul experiences the principles that are being exemplified before our eyes, our soul blinds our eyes and opens our eye. And rather than seeing white supremacists in a capital, we see the underpinnings of an unjust government crumbling. When we see a knee on a neck, rather than seeing a white supremacist police system or racist system destroying our males, our people, what we see with our soul is the clarion voice that's opening the eye so everyone can see and hear the injustice that's being presented to it. And when we see it with our soul, we began to understand that this principle is a principle that cannot be, it's not malleable enough to be molded in a spiritual way. This is a non-existent principle because the Creator never intended for the principle of racism and murder to be a part of our agenda. Our soul says the true principle involved here is loving kindness, and the man with the knee on the neck needs us more than the man who has the knee on his neck. The man with the knee on the neck recognizes that it is being killed, but the one with the knee on the neck does not recognize who it is. The one with the knee on the neck sees into the other world and cries out, "Mama." But the one with the knee on the neck only sees what's around it because it is waiting for the accolades of those who cheers it on. However, when we see that with our soul, we look in the face of the one with the knee on the neck and we say, do you know who you are? Are you aware that you are killing yourself? Look at your knee on your neck. Our soul speaks to that soul. We said in the past that that demons or evilness will lead you a pathway and you do things, and as soon as you do it, they leave you. No, that's not what happens. You get caught up in the moment of that earthly principle, and you do this devious thing. You do this deadly act. And as soon as you do it, your mind goes numb because your soul can't stomach it. And your soul takes over, and you say, what in the heck have I done? And then you hear the voices around you tell you you did nothing wrong, and all of a sudden your mind wakes up and rocks your soul to sleep or overpowers the voice of your soul, and now you embrace that wrong act, and then you engage in again and again and again. However, if you just stop for a moment and let your soul renew your mind, at that moment when your mind goes numb and your soul wakes you up to what you've done, if you just stay in that moment for a period of time, then you're able to see that you are your brother's keeper. And you didn't kill George Floyd. You just killed Derek Chambers, or whatever his name is. You just killed yourself. Your soul says that, shows you that. And the reason you're able to pause and listen to that, not because you have grown so strong, but because there are those who have embraced who they are, and they see you for who you really are, the image, the essence of Elohim. And now that environment has been created for you to see a true mirror of yourself, regardless of what direction you look in. Does that make sense to you? If it does, then all I'm trying to say to you is this. That is how we create an environment for the manifestation of peace, harmony, in other words, change. Questions, comments? Okay, Ms. Kathy.
That's where I want to leave it tonight, Pastor, right there. I think enough has been said that resonates in that it gives us something to sit with and to mull over even more. If there are any questions about it, of course, we'll bring it up at our next meeting on Saturday, Sunday, or Monday. But if there are no questions or comments, that's as far as I want to go tonight. Okay. Well, on that note then, we thank everyone for their time and their input today. Pray that you have a great week as the week continues, and we'll see you on Saturday.
Thank you, Kathy. Good lesson.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you, Kathy.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Have a great week.
Good night.